Trump is livid at this moment with CBS News, and understandably so, because the coverage is so freaking biased. It's night after night after night after night, and he's kind of had it up to here, right? Well, guess what? He's in control of the FCC, and he's now calling on Brendan Carr to not just look at ABC, as Brendan is doing, and NBC, as Brendan is doing, but also to take a good hard look at CBS News. This story being reported in one of the trades known as Mediaite. They're saying in a Truth social post on Sunday, Trump raged at 260 Minutes reports, one featuring an interview with Ukrainian President Zelensky, during which Scott Pelley, who's the correspondent, said that Trump, quote, rewrote history, saying falsely that Ukraine had started the war. So this was the voiceover narrative. It showed a clip of Trump calling Zelensky a dictator without elections. So that could actually be interpreted in different ways, and I'm sure Pelley has his interpretation. The problem is, he's 60 News. He's supposed to be this big old voice of authority. We know he's old. As for how big he is, I don't know. I don't know what their audience size really is anymore, but a lot of people still watch. In another segment, you had some other correspondent I've never heard of talk to residents of Greenland who oppose the Trump administration's idea of joining the country and joining the U.S., including the prime minister. So Trump's response was this on Truth Social. He wrote, almost every week, 60 Minutes, which does air on Sundays, which is being sued for billions of dollars for the fraud they committed in the 2024 presidential election. Don't forget, Donald Trump is accusing them of fraud. They have not been proven to have had fraud, but they are being accused, and they are being sued for billions by none other than the president. He did get $16 million, don't forget, out of ABC News, for their interview of failed presidential candidate Kamala Harris. Mentions the name Trump in a derogatory and defamatory way for this weekend's, quote, broadcast, and this broadcast tops them all, he writes. They did not one, but two major stories on Trump, one having to do with Ukraine, which I say is a war that would never have happened in the 2020 election. Oh, if it had not been, in his view, it was totally stolen from him, right? So he's getting into that rig stuff. In other words, if I were president, the other story was having to do with Greenland, casting our country as led by me falsely, inaccurately, and fraudulently. I am so honored to be suing 60 Minutes, he writes, CBS Fake News, and Paramount over their fraudulent, beyond recognition reporting. They did everything possible to illegally, he said, elect Kamala, including completely and corruptly changing major answers to the interview questions, but it just didn't work for them. I'm going to get to that in a second, just to jog your memory. They did everything, he writes, possible to illegally elect Kamala. As I said, it just didn't work for them. They are not a news show, he says, but a dishonest political operative simply disguised as news, and must be responsible for what they have done and what they are doing. They should lose their license, he writes. That's a big deal. He wants them to lose their license. And guess what? He's got the FCC. Hopefully the FCC, as headed by its highly respected chairman, Brendan Carr, will impose the maximum fines and punishment, which is substantial for their lawful and illegal behavior. CBS is out of control at levels never seen before, and they should pay a big price for this. Make America great again. All right. This is the particular segment he is referencing. I'm going to show it to you. This was Kamala Harris being interviewed on 60 Minutes, and what we learned was that there was a lot of dressing up of her answer. They asked her a question. She couldn't quite answer it. We know this because they mistakenly aired it on Margaret Brennan's Face the Nation and then cleaned it up by the time it aired again on 60 Minutes that evening. Let's go to the before and after, the sort of, redo job that made her look so much better that he's arguing was a form of election interference.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We are not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
All right. So very, very different answers, as you well remember. So Donald Trump is sort of saying, you know what, I'm sick and tired of it. And, Media Research Center, they have done a lot of investigating in this particular area in terms of bias. And what they have discovered is that overwhelmingly, like 98% of the time, on the network news shows, you have very negative news on Donald Trump, and then 99% of the time you have very positive news, say on Biden, or it would have been Kamala. And you've got to start to ask yourself, maybe he's right in the sense that they're trying to interfere. The good news is it didn't work. Right? The good news is the American people saw through a lot of that. They remembered, for example, the 51X spooks. They remembered, oh, no, couldn't have possibly come from the Wuhan lab in China. No, that virus, that was from the wet market. All of these things, right, started to add up. Russia. We had to have the whole Mueller investigation. That thing, by the way, has taken on new turns, as we've discussed over the last couple of weeks. The reality is this: Americans no longer believe these institutional news services. And that's actually kind of disturbing and sad in and of itself. And that's where Brendan Carr actually has a leg to stand on. As he wrote to Bob Iger, remember in the letter in December, he said, hey, Bob, who runs ABC News vis-a-vis Disney, Americans no longer like you guys, no longer actually respect you or trust you. And the fact that you had to pay out $16 million because Georgie Poo decided he was going to libel the president on his show after you guys told him not to, proves that Americans no longer actually respect or value you. And that's a problem, because we got to give out the FCC license, and maybe we shouldn't be giving it to all these affiliates all around the country. Maybe they shouldn't be carrying Whoopi Goldberg and George Stephanopoulos. And now the same thing is going to happen, you see, to CBS News. I would not be surprised if in the coming days you see a letter going from one Brendan Carr to CBS News saying, guys, you got to clean it up. You have to have both sides. In my estimation, I think Donald Trump is probably right that you may not have seen an escalation in the war in Ukraine had he been president, because he would have found some kind of diplomatic solution. I think that there were opportunities and there were missed opportunities. And whether or not he's able to get there or not now, I don't know. It's unclear, right? It wasn't very good to see what happened over the weekend there with the bombing, et cetera. And I don't think Donald Trump is one bit happy about any of it. But we are where we are right now. And for everyone in the media to have only one position and only one viewpoint, it's actually weird. I've never seen anything like it. Grant, and I used to work at CBS. Heck, I'm the one that did the story back in 2000, right, on how these voting machines could be in jeopardy. That was back in a day when they were willing to talk about these things. It's so biased right now that I think whether you're talking about CBS, ABC, NBC, I've worked for all of them, there is so much animosity and fury and frustration with this president and his administration that they can't even see straight. And when you can't see straight, you can't actually be a decent reporter anymore. You're so clouded by your judgment, and that's where we are.